Hello! So, April Fool's in Love, a novella. Chapter 9 is where we're going to pick up. Again, if you have not read the rest or listened to the rest, shame on you. No, I'm kidding. Go to the description and you can go to the full playlist and be able to listen to them all in order. So, some of the chapters are pretty short, so you could probably get through them real quick, and we're coming up really close on the end. I mean, there's only 13 chapters. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's 5 left, and some of them aren't very long. Okay, 9's kind of long. But some of them aren't that long. So, without further ado. Friday, February 28th, evening. Zeke arrived at Lucy's house 6:15 to help with her English paper. Strolling up the long walkway that led to the mansion, he heaved a breath. Why was Star avoiding me? He rang the doorbell and jumped a foot. I've heard quieter fire alarms. A man with a mustache and a neatly trimmed hair opened the door. Oh, you must be the one helping my Lucinda studying. Come inside, wipe your feet. Annoyance laced his tone. Lucinda, your little school friend is here. Lucy skipped down the steps 2 at a time. Her pigtails bounced as she reached the bottom. Thanks, Daddy. We'll be in the study. You and Mom have fun. She leaned over and kissed her dad on the cheek, then grabbed Zeke's arm and pulled him farther into the house. They passed through a living room, a dining room, and the kitchen before reaching the study. She all but shoved him onto the couch as she turned and closed the study doors. You have a very nice house. Zeke glanced around. Shh! Lucy pressed her ear against the door and waited. Zeke heard a distant thud, footsteps, the sound of car doors closing. An engine roared, lights flashed and passed along the windows, fading, then silence. Lucy spun and grinned at Zeke. Coast is clear. She leapt under the couch with such grace and speed that it was no wonder she was the head cheerleader. Alone at last. She leaned towards him. Zeke held up his book like a shield between them. Yeah, right. So... He scooted away. She inched closer. The arm of the couch dug into his back. Sweat gathered on his brow. That English paper? Oh! Lucy grinned. That. Her face hovered close to his. You know, I really don't prefer English. She grabbed his book and threw it over the back of the couch. I'd much rather French. Her lips locked onto his. This girl's insane! Horrified, he widened his eyes. Lucy! His words muffled as he grabbed her shoulders to push her off. Lucy broke at the kiss. No need to act like a good boy here. We're all alone now. She pulled the tail of his shirt up. Let's get comfortable. She nibbled on his ear. No, I love Star. I can't do this. With one hand, he tugged his shirt down. With the other, he gripped her shoulder. Lucy, You like to wrestle? I'm fine with that. I'm dating the wrestling captain, after all. I know some tricks. She crawled her hands across his abs and tickled him. Twitching, Zeke laughed. Lou! Her lips against his cut off his protest. Her long claw-like nails dug into his chest. She said you were built, but I never thought. She pressed her body against him. Enough! He pushed her back with his forearm, rolled from the couch, and fell into the floor. I didn't come here for this. Zeke, what's wrong with you? Don't tell me you're still hung up on Esther. That's not going anywhere. Winded, he scrambled to his feet. Star and I are... So last week. I heard she's on a date with Damien. She bit her lip as she stood. Don't let that little whore ruin our fun. She stalked towards him. Anger boiled through his veins. Don't ever call her a whore. He bit his tongue so hard he tasted the metallic tang of blood. I'm not going to hit a girl. With all the control he could muster, he stomped past her and out the door. How dare you! You'll regret this, Zeke. I promise. Lucy's shriek echoed through the house. With speed that would put the so-called track star to shame, he rushed through that house into his vehicle, tearing out of there. He gripped the wheel so to steady his shaking hands. Stars with Damien? I just made an enemy of Lucy. Things couldn't get any worse. He shook his head. Just don't think about it. He clicked on the radio. That's an oldie. Elvin Bishop fooled around and fell in love. Don't be fooled by all those tricksters out there. You know what time of year it is. Instead, do the fooling yourself. There can only be one king or queen of foo... Click. Zeke struck the dash with his palm. Stupid! Dumb! Idiot! His foot heavy on the gas. He punched through the Richie-rich neighborhood. Flashing lights lit up his rearview mirror. He slowed down and pulled over. Perfect. He bit out with a growl, his hand white-knuckled at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel. He took several deep breaths to calm down, but they didn't help one bit. He wanted to break something, hit something, or someone. Damien. License tag and reg... The female officer laughed. Why, if it isn't Ezekiel, what has you rating like a bat out of the pit itself? Zeke gawked at the red-headed officer. Mrs. Farley, Officer Farley. His heart lodged in his throat. Girl troubles, he grimaced. Girl troubles? I did not just tell the worship pastor's wife that. She laughed. Well, I'd let you off with a warning, but you were going 50 in a 35, and troubles or no, there's no good reason to drive recklessly. So I'm gonna give you a ticket. This can't be happening. He handed her the information she needed and watched her leave in the rearview mirror. So Star's out with Damien. Lucy's going to make school a nightmare. Now I'm getting a ticket. Why is this happening? As the policewoman returned, he tried to keep his expression even. Dad is going to tear me a new one when he hears about this. The officer said something, and without any thought he responded, Have a good night, Officer Farley. He read the ticket as she drove past him. Give your worries and cares to God. He cares for you. 1 Peter 5:7. He smirked. I guess she decided to give me a lesson instead of a ticket. Miss Farley always knew what to say to give him the encouragement he needed. Putting the vehicle in gear, he drove under the speed limit towards town. I should just go home. Go to bed. Forget this nightmare ever happened. He stopped at the crossroad. What if Star's having a bad time too? He looked left towards home and right towards downtown. With a nod, he turned toward Main Street. The Hanks sign shone bright in the distance. He pulled in. Nah, he wouldn't have brought her here. What kind of loser? Esther's head was framed in the window of a 1996 Cadillac convertible with the top up. Zeke idled 2 spaces away. He cracked open his door but stayed seated. Damien took the shake out of Esther's hand and leaned over. Their lips met. Yeah, she really needs my rescuing. With a groan, Zeke reached for the door. Damien, no! At Esther's cry, he leapt from the truck. Damien was on top of her, a pair of hands below, pushing him against the chest. No, I don't act like that. I know you like it rough, or is this part of your game? Her attacker chuckled. In an instant, Zeke reached the convertible, scooped up a nearby rock, and smashed the driver's side window with it. My car! Damien jumped out, swinging a fist at Zeke's face. Zeke caught the punch. You dare touch her, you piece of filth? He delivered a mighty right hook to Mr. Trackstar's jaw, dropping him like a sack of potatoes. Zeke! Esther jumped out of the passenger side and ran to him. Breathing heavily, he pointed at Damon. You ever come near her like that again, and I'll rip your throat out. He hooked his arm around Star and marched to his vehicle. People gawked, murmured to each other, and a few snapped pictures. Once they were in the quad cab and driving away, Zeke's hand throbbed in protest. He glanced at her. Are you all right? I thought... She trembled. He parked on the shoulder, put on the emergency lights so no one hit them in the dark country road, grabbed his jacket from the back seat and wrapped it around her. I'm sorry, Star. He lifted the armrest, wrapped an arm around her waist, and scooted over to him in a side hug. That jerk, putting his hands on you like that. He rested his head against hers, letting his fingers stroke her hair. You were on a date, she whispered. What? He pulled back and stared at her for a few heartbeats. No, I was over there to help her study. At least that's what it was supposed to be. Her expression was unreadable. She acts all proper, but she's more like Lucy Furr, Esther giggled. Zeke smiled and shook his head. Lucifer. He chuckled. You had the devil and I had the Antichrist, she snorted. They both laughed until tears streaked down their face. She hiccuped. If you hadn't been there, Zeke. She violently shook and sobbed, soaking his shirt. He held her tight and rocked her back and forth. Let it out, Princess Angel. You're not alone. Huddled next to Zeke and bawling like a baby was not the way Esther dreamed of ending her evening. But here she was, and everything felt right. Her sobs subsided, and only slight trembles and sniffles resounded in the cab of the truck. She leaned her head against his shoulder and nuzzled into his neck. He was strong and gentle, comforting and protective, everything she needed in this moment. The stupid decision to go out with Damien only embarrassed her because Zeke witnessed the whole thing. This would be another lobster moment. However, if Zeke hadn't been there... Another shudder rumbled through her. It's okay, I'm here. Zeke's voice soothed as he rubbed her back. She pulled away slightly, her soft face grazed against his stubbled jaw. She rubbed her cheek against his again, reveling in the feel of his masculinity and surety. His breath hitched. She backed farther away so their foreheads touched and breaths mixed. He smelled of peppermint. Star, his deep voice sent a shiver through her. Zeke. She didn't know if he heard her, or what he wanted, or what he was thinking. She didn't know what she was thinking. She just knew this moment, this chemistry, with him. She leaned forward, closed her eyes, and brushed her lips against his. Soft, warm Zeke. His forehead touching hers, he heaved a sigh. Star. Esther stared at him. He gulped and lowered his gaze to her lips. She didn't know if he wanted to kiss her again or regretted her forwardness. I better get you home. He tugged her closer. She laughed. You say one thing, but your body does another. I'm trying to be a gentleman, but I'm still a guy. Please make this easier on me. At his plea, she scooted to her side of the vehicle. Coldness covered her at the absence of his warmth. She wanted to kiss him again. Wait. You can't kiss Zeke. He's your best friend. She straightened her clothes and stared out the window as he drove toward her house. He took one of her hands she was wringing and laced their fingers. He glanced at her, his hand resting comfortably on the steering wheel while the other rubbed small circles with his thumb on the back of her hand. He smiled before returning his attention to the road. The entire ride, she tried to think of small talk, but nothing came to mind. She was attracted to her best friend. It must be teenage hormones. But hormones or not, she couldn't deny the attraction, or that kiss. We're here. Zeke squeezed her hand and gazed into her eyes. They should probably talk about their relationship, but Esther didn't want to. She didn't know how she could face him again. She was the one that started this whole scheme, and nowhere in the sham did she plan to fall for her best friend. She needed time to think, time to decide if getting with Zeke would be wise. Will this ruin our friendship? Thanks for the ride, and for earlier. I really owe you. She smiled, hopped from the truck, and raced towards her house. She locked herself in her shared bedroom. I'm such a fool, falling for my best friend. And that was chapter 9. I apologize. I could tell I started reading really fast, and I hope that didn't ruin it. I am not a professional audiobook reader. I thought I would be able to do it better, but I realized I started kind of rushing it. Probably because it was more of a lot of action kind of happening, but then I didn't adjust my pacing, so I apologize. I will try and do better in the rest of the remaining chapters, but thank you for watching, and let me know what you think. Bye.